They can watch things in and around Lambeau Field. More than 250,000 people are expected to come through the city over the next 3 days. Tonight, they'll get to see the first round. Packers on pick number 23. Unclear where exactly they'll go with it. GM Brian Gutekunst joined the Rich Eisen show yesterday to discuss where he thinks they are as a team heading into the draft and into the 2025 season.
I think we're growing. We lost our last 3 games, right? I think that's a tough pill to swallow. I don't think we can get very far away from that and understand that we got a lot of work to do. But I do like our group. I think they're eager. And I think they're all kind of entering a phase where they're going to be playing their best football. So I think we're really excited about that.
Again, the draft gets going tonight with the first round. The second and third rounds are tomorrow, followed by the final 4 rounds on Saturday. Things start tonight at 7. Turning to Wisconsin. Spring practice officially in the books. Team was on the field for the 15th and final practice this morning. Now the coaching staff's focus shifts to the transfer portal as they look to bolster their roster going forward.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
When a company only does business in Wisconsin, that's Wisconsin Strong. Rural Mutual provides all lines of insurance, including commercial, farm, home, and auto. And your premiums stay right here to keep Wisconsin strong. Local agents, local underwriters, local claims adjusters.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, Jon Horst is sticking around for the foreseeable future. The Bucs have reportedly given the GM a multi-year extension. The team he put together this year sits in an 0-2 hole in their first-round series against Indiana. They're going to look to get out of that tomorrow night in Game 3 back in Milwaukee. And the Brewers and Giants closing out their series this afternoon out west. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil, Print.
But the name that I keep hearing with Green Bay is a player that I absolutely adore. Mad Max. Maxwell Hairston, cornerback, Kentucky, fastest man at the combine this year. 4.28. I think he's just as quick as he is fast. I've said it before. If you're talking about just pound for pound explosive athletes in this draft, I might put Hairston right behind Travis Hunter. Yeah. 6 interceptions, was it? 3 pick sixes, tied the school record. He's a dude, man. He can play man, he can play zone. Jair Alexander, that whole situation. I just like this pick.
Yeah, it's a good pick.
It's so unpredictable. I do think it's a good draft class. Certainly where we're picking, I think there's going to be a really good player that's going to help our football team. And we're really excited to add, not only a really good player, but a culture guy as well.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
That's Todd McShay. Before you heard the music and before you heard Brian Gutekunst, that's Todd McShay on his podcast with The Ringer. I know he's with The Ringer. I don't know if that specific podcast was Ringer podcast. I just see the clips on Twitter, and I cut them to use on the show. Well, that's one of the few places since really late last night that I started to see and hear the name Maxwell Hairston. So throughout the show today, we're going to talk about rumors and names connected to the Packers, and it seemingly kind of changes every day, which is it's draft season. But when I say things like, I'm hearing Maxwell Hairston, I'm seeing Maxwell Hairston, that is not me talking to people around the league. And that's not, in league circles. I'm just seeing it on Twitter. I'm seeing and hearing the stuff the same place that you would hear and see it. So when I say, I'm hearing a lot of Maxwell Hairston, that's not me being a prick saying, I talk to people. It's just, I see it on Twitter. And it seems like that name has really picked up steam over the last 12 to 18 to 20 hours. It seemed very wide receiver-ish in the early parts of yesterday. And now it's like, well, maybe Maxwell Hairston's the guy. I've heard and seen it in a couple of different places. So that's where we will begin tonight by talking about the NFL draft. We're just a couple of hours away. In fact, I started a countdown timer during Bill's show. We are 4 hours, 3 minutes, and 7. Actually, never mind. It just updated. 2 hours, 55 minutes, and 29 seconds away from 7 o'clock. And obviously, the first pick won't be probably until closer to 7:30. But we're only just a couple of hours away from the first round of the NFL draft tonight in Green Bay, which will be very fun to watch. I got a little FOMO watching Bill up there, and Kate, who helps produce Bill's show when I have to be elsewhere, when I need a day off, and she does an awesome job. She was up there getting people signed up to win some concert tickets and giving away zone merch and talking with, and she called me right before the show because she was walking into the draft. She FaceTimed me and was kind of showing me around, like, look at this, look at that. And it was pretty cool. Like, there's Tucker Kraft. There's, at all these parties and front yards. And she said, Grant, 2 people have stopped me today and asked, are you Kate from the Bill Michaels show? Can we get a picture? I'm like, wow. So Kate is up there experiencing it in Green Bay. Bill was up there earlier today. So a little FOMO, but also I'm happy that I'm in the studio so we can take calls and do a legit show tonight and get ready for the draft. So I would love to take your calls, 608-321-1670. As always, we'll talk a little bit about the Bucs, probably for all of 5 minutes, because Jon Horst was extended today. That's worth talking about, but we did a ton of Bucs last night. The Brewers are playing right now. I feel like I'm not doing my job if I don't pass along that the Brewers scored 3 runs in the 4th inning with some bunts and with some balls in play. They scored 3 runs in the 4th inning, and they did not hit a ball harder than 88 miles per hour. I saw Reviewing the Brew tweet that out 6 minutes ago, and I'm like, that's Brewers baseball. That's Murph ball, especially in a day like today where Churio's out of the lineup and Contreras is out of the lineup. They're going to try to nickel and dime their way to a split series, which I think would be a success out in San Francisco. So a little Brewers, maybe a tiny little bit of Bucs, but mostly draft talk tonight. That's where I want to begin. And I'm so thrilled that the draft is tonight because I feel like we've said all that needs to be said. I feel like this thing has kind of run its course from a content perspective. I know there are people who the draft is their main thing, and we're going to talk to one of those people at 5:30, Coody Stoots, who covers the Texans, but also is a massive draft guy and an awesome guest. And I love anytime I have an excuse to get him on. We had him on a couple months ago before Packers Texans. And he's a huge draft guy. So we're going to talk to him about some prospects at 5:30. But some people, it's like the draft is their main thing. That's what they focus on most of the year when they're watching college football. And then they go right into the offseason, grinding tape and then the combine. That's not me. So I'm sure there are some people who could do draft stuff year round. It has a shelf life for me. And I feel like we've expired that shelf life. Like it's time to light the candle tonight. We've gone from wide receiver to pass rush. And then, well, if we're talking pass rush, edge rusher or interior defensive line, should they trade up? Should they trade down? We've gone back and forth and back and forth. And as I said, and as you heard in the intro, Maxwell Hairston has been the name that I've kind of seen and heard over the last 20 hours or so. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about cornerbacks and let's talk about that possibility. I know people have mixed feelings on the Packers potentially taking a cornerback at pick number 23 in the first round tonight. So as people have seen Maxwell Hairston, I see a lot of comments. It's like, well, why not Will Johnson, right? The corner from Michigan, or Jahdae Barron, I believe it's pronounced, from Texas, or Trey Amos, I believe from Ole Miss. I don't know. Like, don't jump down my throat and say, well, if they go corner, they should take this. They should go this way. I don't know. All right. It's kind of a crapshoot, and I do my best to delineate a little bit. It's easier for me to look at wide receivers or edge rushers and kind of find differences. With corners, like, I'm doing my best. I really am. But we can, parse through different traits and different bits of film and different parts of the scouting report on some of these guys. You heard that audio from Todd McShay, but Daniel Jeremiah, whose mock draft I was looking at earlier today, Daniel Jeremiah, pretty good at this, one of the premier draft and NFL guys, has the Packers taking Maxwell Hairston as well, and he has them doing so before any of the other corners come off the board. So in Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft, for example, no Jahdae Baker, no Will Johnson, no Trey Amos. They pass on all of those guys. The Packers' number one corner, at least in the eyes of Daniel Jeremiah, would be Maxwell Hairston. And if you look at the consensus big board, and I saw Justice Mosqueda of Acme Packing, because I was reading some of his stories to kind of piece little bits of information together. The consensus big board is this big database that pulls in every mock draft, or as many mock drafts as possible. So thousands of data points, and it basically averages them out. Like if you take every mock draft that's been done through all the simulators and by all the experts, these are where the players average out. Okay. Will Johnson averages out at about 12. Jahdae Barron averages out at about 16. Maxwell Hairston averages out at about 45, which I don't remember where who's the tackle or the guard, however you want to classify him, that the Packers took last year, Jordan Morgan. I don't remember where he slotted out on the consensus big board, but it was as a second rounder somewhere. It was not as high as the Packers took him. So the Packers taking the third or fourth corner on the consensus big board and overdrafting him feels very on par. It feels very on brand. And I'll give you, I just like looking at the strengths and weaknesses of some of these players. So I'm reading Lance Zierlein's, rundown of Maxwell Hairston. Here's some of the things that he had to say. And if you're watching on the live stream too, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, I put some data points on the screen as well. But he writes, slender outside cornerback with long arms and impressive ball production. He had like 3 pick sixes last year. Hairston is capable of playing all forms of zone and man. He anticipates well with his eyes and has the burst to take the ball away, posting 6 interceptions, 3 return for touchdowns over his last 20 games. There you go. He stays connected in man coverage with good agility and fluidity, but needs to do a better job of locating the football downfield. This is where the draft breakdowns kind of lose me. It's like, how can you say, well, he's got great ball skills. Look at all these interceptions, but also he doesn't locate the ball super well downfield. Seems kind of contradictory. Whatever. He will struggle to contest big wideouts, and his run support will turn off teams. Hairston has the athleticism and on-ball talent to become a starter, but he needs to prove he can hold up to the rigors and physicality of the NFL game. Long, fast, really athletic. Maybe not so great in run support. I don't really know how the Packers feel about that. You know, these elite cover corners, typically as they age or they become more vested in the NFL, they lose their nose for the football a little bit. Like Kevin King came into the league as a hitter. Oh, he loves to tackle. That kind of went away. And I believe the same of Jair. But then he suffers a shoulder injury, or now I'm making money. Now I'm a true number 1 guy. Now I don't want to stick my nose in there and tackle. I don't know how the Packers weight that. You know what I mean? Like, are the Packers going to be turned off by a corner who doesn't play the run? They're turned off by wide receivers who don't play the run. I don't know if that extends to the defensive side of the ball as well. And as Lance Zierlein writes, that may turn off some teams. Others might not care. But Maxwell Hairston is the zone or man, true boundary corner with the speed and the ball skills to be a true perimeter boundary outside corner. Okay, so that's the name that I keep hearing with the Packers. I tried to read up on this guy just a little bit. This doesn't mean everything. This is not super important, but I feel compelled to say this. I feel like I have to say this. Cornerback is not as much of a need for the Packers as wide receiver or pass rush. I think it's a tier below. And as I said last night, I think some Packers fans and owners are missing the mark on this a little bit. Saying, well, they got to fix the defense. They got to add to the defense. No, I think the offense and defense have about the same amount of strength and weakness. In fact, down the stretch last year in their biggest games, the defense was the better unit. The defense was better and more consistent than the offense. Doesn't mean they were perfect. Doesn't mean they were dominant. But Packers fans, we've been conditioned forever now. Say, you got to fix the defense. You got to fix the defense. You got to fix the defense. This defense doesn't need fixing. They could use talent, obviously, at a couple different positions. But their offense could use some talent too. I think they have a real need at wide receiver. I think they have a real need on the defensive front. I don't think they have a real need at corner. And I realize that Valentine and Nixon and Stokes, those aren't superstars. They're certainly not names. But down the stretch last year, they mostly held serve. And the Packers did not come up short of their goals last year because they didn't have cover corners. I thought by the end of the year, Jeff Hafley and his staff had pretty much come up with a formula to be good enough with the corners that they had. And I think what really let them down was their inability to get home. Edge rushers, interior linemen, just pass rush or defensive front in general. And remember, they added Nate Hobbs. They signed a corner, and they already added a nice, versatile veteran corner to a group that, again, wasn't a weakness last year. So I don't think that corner is a pressing need. I don't think that they need a corner as bad as they need some other positions. Now, I'm fine with them taking a corner. If they take a corner that they really like at 23, I will be pleased with that. And I've often said the last couple of years, you should be drafting corners every year. Not always in the first round, but that's a position group. I think corner, O-line, and D-line. Those are positions that you should always sprinkle a couple of picks every single year. You should always have depth. You should always be taking shots and feeding those position groups, because those are position groups you can't really get caught with your pants down. If you run out of corners, it's really tough. If you run out of O-linemen or D-linemen, if you don't have enough rotational pieces along your pass rush or defensive front, you get caught with your pants down at those positions. It's difficult. So I'm all for drafting a corner. I just want to make it clear that I don't think corner is their biggest need. And I don't think their defense is in desperate need of attention while their offense is perfectly fine, because I think both sides of the ball need some supplementing They need an injection on both sides of the ball. And that's true of most teams, right? You can find areas on both sides of the ball, strengths and weaknesses that need a little bit of help. But I'll tell you, if the Packers go corner at 23, they don't need another versatile slot guy, big nickel guy. They don't need one of those corners. If that's the direction they go at 23, some type of corner that they believe, well, we can play him inside, we can kick him outside, we can do all these different. I'm not interested in that player. They have that player already. Nate Hobbs can be that player. Bullard was their slot, their big nickel. All of last year, they just drafted him in the second round. They really like him. If the Packers are going to go corner at 23, they need to believe in that player as a true boundary corner. They don't need to think that he's Darrelle Revis, like a true island shutdown corner, because it's really tough to find those guys. I don't even know if those guys exist in 2025. They were rare 10 years ago. They might be extinct now. But if the Packers are going to commit the 23rd overall pick in the draft to a corner, which is not their most pressing need, in my opinion, that's fine. But you have to be using that pick on a player that you believe as a true boundary cover corner, not some jack of all trades, little inside, little outside. It's not that versatility is bad, but versatility can't be the selling point at pick number 23. And if they believe Maxwell Hairston can be that true outside boundary guy, great, then take him. A player like Jahdae Barron worries me a little bit. And I had, I put my draft guide over there. I'll grab it in a little bit. But Jahdae Barron, I was reading about him, is thought of, and again, I'm trusting Lance Zierlein and his breakdowns at NFL.com. Big nickelback was in the right place at right time throughout the season. That's the first sentence in his overview. I don't like that. Barron played smothering coverage underneath, fueled by route recognition, footwork, and play strength. His instincts allow him to pounce on catch points or tackle pass catchers immediately from zone. However, he lacks recovery speed deep and can be a little too grabby at the top of the route in man. Tackle technique and run support is a shade inconsistent, but looks correctable. The size and tape work in his favor as a physical nickel who can be an early contributor and future starter with the potential to cross-train as a safety. That doesn't interest me. I'm not interested in that player, at least not at 23, because I believe they already have that player. I think they have multiple versions of that player already. If the Packers believe that Jahdae Barron can be a true boundary guy, all right. If Will Johnson is there and they believe he can be a true outside boundary guy, which I think is what most Packers fans believe. I think that's the name that I've seen from most Packers fans. Great. And Will Johnson, when you read his strengths and weaknesses, I just threw him up on the live stream. Big, smooth, instinctive, presses with patient feet and strong reroutes, meaning he can stick with guys, connects quickly from press and can run, good body control, change of direction, pace. That's an outside corner. That's a boundary corner. Okay. I'm not really interested in some versatile, big nickel, adaptable corner at 23, because I think they already have those guys. And while I don't think corner is their biggest need, I have no problem with them taking a corner if it's a player they believe can be a true boundary, classic cover cornerback. All right? Because I don't think they have that guy right now. Valentine can maybe do it here and there. Nixon can do it here and there. I think those are fine depth pieces, fine rotational pieces. I don't consider them number one outside corners. So if the Packers are going to go corner tonight, and that seems to be the buzz of the last 24 hours, fine. But I don't want another big nickel. They have that guy. If the Packers are going to draft a corner at 23, it needs to be a player they believe can be a boundary, one-on-one press man or zone or whatever Hafley wants to run. You got to believe that you are drafting a corner that isn't redundant to what you already have. Okay. Otherwise, just go wide receiver or go edge or go D-line. You need those positions more than you need corner anyways. And I think that was pretty evident down the stretch last year. Despite their current secondary, their current cornerback room not being all that flashy, not any big names, that was far from their biggest weakness last year. So if they're going to take a player at a position they don't desperately need, like some others, well, you got to believe that dude can be a stud on the boundary. Otherwise, I'm not interested. You have nickels. You have slot guys. If it's corner at 23, it's got to be a boundary guy and a guy you truly believe in that can be a number one outside corner for 5 or 6 years. I hate when people say 8 to 10 years because that's just ridiculous in the NFL. But can you get 4 or 5 years of legitimate boundary corner play? That's what would make the cornerback selection at 23 worth it. All right, let's take a break. I want to take your calls. 608-321-1670 if you have draft thoughts. And one of my favorite guests, Cody Stoots. Houston football covers the Texans, but is an absolute draft nerd and just one of my favorite people and favorite guests. Anytime I have an excuse to get him on. And he replied to one of my tweets today. It's like, all right, I gotcha. Like, now I'm going to ask you to come on because you mixed it up in my mentions. He's anti-Maxwell Hairston, so I'm excited to ask him about that as well, coming up in about an hour and 10 minutes. But after this break, I'm going to get to your calls, 608-321-1670.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
But the name that I keep hearing with Green Bay is a player I absolutely adore. Mad Max. Maxwell Hairston, cornerback, Kentucky, fastest man at the combine this year. 4.28. I think he's just as quick as he is fast. I've said it before. If you're talking about just pound for pound explosive athletes in this draft, I might put Hairston right behind Travis Hunter. Yeah. 6 interceptions, was it? 3 pick sixes, tied the school record. He's a dude, man. He can play man, he can play zone. Jair Alexander, that whole situation. I just like this pick.
Yeah, it's a good pick.
It's Todd McShay on his podcast. It's not the only place that I've seen or heard Maxwell Hairston, the corner out of Kentucky, mocked or projected to the Packers. Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft is another place that I saw it. And interestingly enough, and I know mock drafts, I understand that all of this stuff is make-believe, but there are things to be garnered and are things to be learned picking through it. In Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft, the Packers had their choice of any corner on the board. There was yet to be a corner selected in the draft, and at least in Daniel Jeremiah's world, when the Packers selected at 23, and they didn't go Will Johnson. They didn't go Jahdae Barron. They didn't go Trey Amos. Their first guy, the pick of their litter, and they had the pick of the litter, was Maxwell Hairston, which I find interesting because a lot of people have Maxwell Hairston lower. If you look at the consensus big boards, like 20, 30 picks lower on some consensus boards, or I guess on the consensus board. Hairston's a lot lower. That's interesting to me. I am intrigued. I remain open to the possibility of the Packers drafting a corner, but if they're going to do it, I don't want a big nickel. I don't want, you have those guys. It needs to be a pure boundary guy. Otherwise, I don't feel that that's the best use of their resource, the 23rd overall selection. All right, let's go to the phone calls. Your thoughts on the draft. It's what we're going to mostly focus on tonight because I think we've neglected it. I've neglected it the last two nights. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Denny from Holman.
Denny from Holman. God, it's good to hear your voice. You're jacked up for the draft tonight. I'm surprised you're not there.
Hey, somebody's got to work, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Turned out to be. But anyway, first of all, I wanted to thank Bill, you, and Kate and Ebo for bringing us any and all the facts you can bring us on the draft and stuff. Bill Papadon was great on his, YouTube and everything like that.
Bill
we
was
sure
cooking
appreciate
today.
it. And you know what I think? I think we really need to strap on hard and buckle up, because if we have a GM that picked Vanessa in the first round and Love in the first round, I think anything could happen, to be honest with you, including a trade. And if we do trade and let somebody ahead of us, do you think we're going to hear a lot of boos from the crowd?
I don't know, because I think there's a large contingent of Packers fans there, but you got to remember there's fans from all over the place there. So if there is a boo, and the thing is, Denny, boos cut through. If there's 20 people booing in a crowd of 100, it sounds like the whole crowd's booing.
Right.
I don't know if there will be boos. And the Packers might attempt to trade down. I think there will be plenty of players that are high on their board at 23 just because of the nature of this draft. I don't know that teams are going to be gunning for the 23rd pick. I think if there are opportunities for teams to trade back, it's going to be for the teams at the very bottom of the first round, when teams like the Giants or the Browns might try to just jump up. Because I don't know that the Giants or the Browns feel they need to jump up to 23 if they wanted to get a quarterback, let's say. I just don't know if that pick's going to be coveted from teams trying to come back up.
Do you think Abuka's going to be available, or is he going to be gone?
God, it is so difficult to tell, but it's going to hurt if he's there and they don't take him. Same with Jackson Smith and Jigba a couple of years ago. Like, I wasn't dying to have Jackson Smith and Jigba, but the fact that he was there and that he was an option and then he slid by, like, I don't know. I didn't want him until I had it in my hand and then it was taken from me.
Definitely. I feel that way.
Interesting.
Well, we'll be talking about it tomorrow, I'm sure, and see what they do.
Yeah, we will. Denny, that's a great call. I'm glad you called in. And you were hitting the phone lines early. Thank you. And somebody's got to work. Hell yeah, Denny. Someone's got to work. I'm the one back here in studio today. And after this show's done, I'm probably going to go outside, get some fresh air, stretch my legs a little bit, and then 4-hour draft show with Bill tonight. Strap it in. We'll be reacting to all the picks. So, Denny, if you want live draft coverage like you got from Bill earlier today, 4 hours starting at 7 tonight. All right, let's take another call. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, good luck tonight. That's going to be a grind, but you got to love the NFL draft. And before this call gets too deep, just want to wish a happy birthday to the one and only LaCroix Butler.
It's LaCroix's birthday. I didn't know it was LaCroix's birthday. All right. Sorry, LaCroix. Maybe I'll tweet something at him.
Host's got to know these things.
I know. As the leader of this community, that's something I got to be on top of. God. I do think
he's a podcast listener though, so he's not as important as live and local.
That's true. I'll just, because he's going to listen to this tomorrow, I'll wish him a happy belated birthday. That'll be more appropriate. How's that sound? Because he'll hear it tomorrow.
There you go.
Sweet.
Love it. Got a crazy hypothetical. No way I see this happening. I'm not condoning this. I wanted to get your take on it. Would you trade Shedeur Sanders and TJ Watt for Jordan Love if you're the Green Bay Packers?
So basically what you're asking, if the Steelers, it would have to be like I guess we don't need to think about the finite details. No, because I don't really like Shedeur Sanders that much, although he'd be cheap. And interesting. You're making me do that. Like classic Ryan Russillo. I didn't know we were doing this. Yeah, I would have prepared. I don't know. That's an intriguing one. What do you think? You probably have an opinion on this. You give your answer first, and I'll scramble to come up with something.
I'm like not leaning one way or the other too strongly, but I think I would do it.
Interesting.
He's controllable quarterback. You get one of the best defensive players in the NFL, maybe NFL ever, at a position of need. And we saw what Matt LaFleur did last year with Malik Willis, oftentimes looking better on offense than a Jordan Love-led offense. So I think I would do it.
So I guess like Trey Hendrickson has talked about, like he's available, like teams could go at him, or Myles Garrett or Max Crosby. Those guys are a little bit younger. How old is TJ Watt? Because I know he's great. How much longer do we think he's going to be great? I guess he's the same age as Trey Hendrickson. He's 30. Man, I don't know. He's dealt with a lot of injuries.
I mean, Von Miller's still kicking around. So.
Yeah. But Von Miller is the guy you add for a year. He's not someone that like you build the whole boat around. You know what I mean? Like you bring him in as an extra piece to try to win a Super Bowl.
True. And that's what the Packers still need this year.
Yeah.
They need a veteran, guy that can come in. They need a Julius Peppers, a Charles Woodson,
Khalil Mack type.
Von Miller.
They could have had him. So if you're telling me I could have Von Miller for 1 year at not a ridiculous number, the problem is TJ Watt wants a new deal, right? I was willing to do that for Trey Hendrickson, at least in principle or at least in theory. I don't know. Maybe I'm not as high on TJ Watt, and maybe I obviously just haven't thought about it a whole lot. That's interesting. That's a really interesting one. Do you think Shedeur Sanders gets picked? He's getting picked tonight, right? You're not one of those nerds that think he's not a first-round talent. He's not going to go on night one.
Correct, yeah. I mean, we saw Bo Nix get picked in the top, 12 last year?
Yeah.
Shedeur Sanders is getting picked.
So that's what annoys me. Colin, that's a great call. Enjoy the draft tonight. The draft nerds and the mock drafters, who, by the way, I like their work. It is because of the mock drafters and the draft people that I'm allowed to learn and kind of prepare for this event. So I shouldn't just put them down as nerds, but look, we do this every year where it's like, I actually don't have a first round grade on Shedeur Sanders. And then this person goes on a show and like the Dan Patricks of the world are like, is it right that you don't have a first round grade on Shedeur Sanders? And then the mock drafter is like, well, when you look at this, that, and the other thing, like, I don't know. If he would have been in last year's draft, he would have been the 7th or 8th quarterback take. It's like, yeah, but he's not in last year's draft and he's a quarterback. So the rules are different when it comes to grading first or second or third round players. Like he's getting drafted tonight. I think he's getting drafted higher than most people think. Watch Jackson Dart come off the board at some point. Like we always draft people love puffing their chests out about this isn't a good draft. I only have a first round grade on this many players and this quarterback, he's not a day one guy, but he's going to go on day one. Like everyone always wants to throw the book at the draft. And it's like, there is a lot of numbers and a lot of data that goes into it, and rightfully so. But with some players, especially quarterbacks, I'm not saying you throw the book completely out, but I think parts of the book you throw out with quarterbacks just because they're handled differently. Rick makes a good point here. Shedeur Sanders is more accurate than Love. I also think there's a lot of things that Jordan Love can do that Shedeur Sanders cannot do. I don't know. That's an interesting hypothetical. Jordan Love for Shedeur Sanders and TJ Watt. I guess it would depend on how high you are on Shedeur Sanders because you reset the salary, right? Like, is Shedeur Sanders going to be able to play a competent, competitive level of football this year? You know what I mean? Like, is he going to be able to come in and compete, or is he going to have to learn and grow and maybe be benched at some point? Like, that's a non-starter then for the Packers. Because what did Brian Gutekunst say repeatedly this offseason, most notably at his end-of-season presser? This is the time that we need to contend for championships. This is when we really need to get dialed in. So it's a fun hypothetical, Cone. I wish I could give you a stronger take. I wish I could give you more on it because it's an interesting one. I just don't have a great answer. So sorry, Cone. I feel like I let you down there in the host-caller dynamic. When we come back, we'll continue to discuss this. I want to kick around the idea of cornerback just a little bit more because that's been the buzz of the last 20 hours or so, most notably with Maxwell Hairston, the cornerback from Kentucky. So I can continue to give some data on that guy. I'm going to grab my draft guide, which is on the other side of the studio, and give you a little bit more. We'll continue the Wisco Sports Show next. Oh, and by the way, at the end of the hour, a couple of sound bites from different draft prospects who are dumping on Green Bay a little bit, taking some shots at the city of Green Bay a little bit in some interviews today, which I find very interesting, and I want to talk about that as well.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Maxwell Hairston, cornerback, Kentucky. Limited to only 7 games last season due to a shoulder injury, Maxwell Hairston still made his presence felt, being named second team All-SEC. He can be a game-changing defender as he tied the Kentucky school record with 3 career pick sixes. He has great footwork, can change direction quickly, and has a keen ability in route recognition. At 183 pounds, scouts believe he'll need to put on some weight, but his natural nose for the football makes him an asset for any defense.
That's I actually have no clue who that is. I got into the studio this morning, WOZN, our flagship here in Madison, and Ebo says, Grant, I got all these vignettes, is what they're called in the business, just these little features about all these different players in the draft from the Infinity Sports Network, which is the programming that you hear when it's not Over the Line or Bill or me, like Bart Winkler in the evening. And I'm like, well, I'll play those. Sure, it's good information. Right? You can learn something, and I need to learn. I get into the draft. It's fun to talk about until like about today. I'm like, Jesus. Like yesterday, I'm getting home from work, and I'm like, I gotta do one more day of this. Like, can the draft just get here? Right. So I'll take any information that I can get. These little vignettes. I do have to point out, because Ebo pointed this out as well, the music in the background of these, it's royalty-free music. It's some type of royalty-free music, but a lot of times, like, royalty-free music for radio production, like if you're ever listening to the radio and you hear commercials and there's music in the background of the commercial, like it's royalty-free, get it on. There's lots of websites that kind of supply radio with royalty-free music. You're understanding this concept. Even you don't work in radio, but you know exactly what I'm saying. This song sounds a lot like Black Skinhead by Kanye West. And Evo, like, could not stop pointing this out.
Kentucky. Limited to only 7 games last season due to a shoulder injury, Maxwell Hairston still made his presence felt, being named second team All-SEC. He can be a game-changing...
I think it's still fine, personally, to listen to Kanye. I'm a big art from artist guy. I don't find myself listening to Kanye very much because I don't listen to a ton of rap. And when I do, it's just Kanye's way down the list. But I probably would have used something else. If I was tasked with, hey, can you put some music behind our draft reports? I probably would have used something that's not Kanye or Kanye adjacent, at the very least. The rub today is Maxwell Hairston. We have Todd McShay saying, I keep hearing Maxwell Hairston connected to the Packers. Daniel Jeremiah has the Packers not only taking Maxwell Hairston at 23, but he has the Packers taking Maxwell Hairston when all of the other corners are on the board. Jahdae Barron and Will Johnson and Trey Amos, if that's your bag from Ole Miss. I just see that name popping up. Because I have my R-Lads scouting guide here, our draft guide, courtesy of Bill, our friends at R-Lads, as Bill would say, I can give you some information on the cat if you are interested. I just like draft magazines and draft reports. They just interest me because these things are written like nothing else in the world. Like, they just make up words and phrases, which I find interesting. It would be like a medical journal or anything else. It's like only in a draft guide does this type of language, this type of phrasing exist. Maxwell Hairston, Kentucky, but he's from West Bloomfield, Michigan. Height, 5,112 centimeter. Why just put, see, again, why would you phrase it that way? Weight, 183, 40 time 4.2, very fast, fastest at the combine. Junior entry, 1-year starter, second team All-SEC in 2024. This is what I'm saying. That's not a complete sentence. You're just right. Slender frame with loose hips and smooth movement skill. Loose hips. Sure, that's a thing. Primarily played field corner, but occasionally lined up as an inside hole player, or lined up inside as a hole player. I mean, neither phrasing makes sense, no matter how you spin it. Played off and press man along with cover 3 variations with some hard corner and cover 4. In off coverage, he often played with a big cushion. I added the he so that sentence would make sense. In off coverage, often played with a big cushion. Shows a fluid pedal with pacing to maintain cushion on initial releases. Easy controlled transitions to lateral and turn and run both in man and zone turns. On a serious note, that's what I'm talking about. If the Packers are going to use the 23rd overall pick on a corner, fine. I don't believe corner to be their number one need. I think wide receiver and defensive front are much more pressing. But they could use a great corner too, but I don't want to use pick 23 on a big nickel, on a slot guy. I don't want someone who's a jack of all trades. If you're drafting a corner at 23 in a draft where you don't need a corner like you need some other things, then it has to be someone that you fully believe can be a true boundary player, because they have a couple of slot options, good slot options. They don't really have a pure boundary option that knocks your socks off right now. Played the deep outside, reacting to route combinations, attacking overlapping zones with quick adjustments. In man coverage, flashed an offhand jam and press and occasionally lined up deeper and used a catch and run technique to disrupt the route stem. Of course, I've always talked about the importance of disrupting the route stem. If you've listened to the show for any amount of time, it's the stem. I always talk about the stem. Rarely gave up leverage inside and was quick to flip his hips. Not surprising, because I've been told his hips are fluid. On a baseball turn versus a double move. Excellent recovery speed if separated. That's what I'm talking about, boundary stuff. Like, can you run with a guy? Has the speed to stay with the fastest wide receiver and mirror cuts throughout the route. Ultra quick acceleration on plant and drive with the ball in the air. Has an extra gear closing. Ball production is elite with the ability to locate the ball in phase and timing leap to the catch point. Elite catch radius. He gets his hand in the basket consistently when closing in. Oh my God, this goes on to the second page. I think we've got our fill, actually. I'm not going to. That little bit took a little bit longer than I already expected. I'm going to cut it off early. Outside. A player like Jade Barron, who Arif Hassan, our friend who has a Substack who's joined the show from time to time, mostly to rip on Christian Watson because he thinks NDSU is, we've done this song and dance with Arif before. And interestingly enough, he dropped a mock draft earlier today that did not include Grace Zabel in round number 1, which is hilarious because, again, finding a way to directly or indirectly take shots at NDSU. But he had Jade Barron going to the Packers. And I just don't, like, this is not my bag. The first sentence of Lance Zierlein's overview at NFL.com is Big Nickelback, like that's his name, was in the right place at the right time. His strengths, above average size and strength as a big nickel corner. Able to forcefully redirect routes over the first 5 yards, has plus awareness and instincts to make responses in zone. Like, I want a guy, if Jeff Hafley wants to play man, who can play man on the boundary. Hobbs can play in the slot. Bullard, I thought after last year, was their slot player. Like, he was their guy. He was the guy in that package. And Nixon can do it too. So they have plenty of options if they want to even rotate slot corners or nickel corners. And they can play matchups. They can go bigger and smaller. They don't need another one. So corner is not their biggest need, but if they're going to go corner at 23, it's got to be a guy they believe can play on the boundary. I got a text here, and I don't have your number, so I apologize. Let's see here. Do you think if we were to draft Simmons out of Ohio State, that it's more indicative of running a ground and pound offense with 2 stud tight ends to make Love more of a game manager than having, I don't even know what that word means, to be this text is too long. I don't think they're going to draft Simmons out of Ohio State because I think they need O-line even less than they need corner and other positions. Plus, there's some real like character and work ethic concerns with Simmons. And I think if those concerns weren't there, he would be going higher. He's been mocked in the 20s. I think he would be, he'd be going higher if the personal traits and if the character traits weren't confusing. Does that make sense? Bobby in Menominee says, I'm happy about all the people calling Green Bay and Wisconsin boring. We don't need more people moving to Wisconsin. Continues, I am once again ready to be pissed at teams for taking the whole 10 minutes to draft the obvious pick. I mean, that's part of it. I'm probably going to turn off tweet notifications. I might mute Schefter because one of my biggest pet peeves in sports, and I bring this up occasionally, I try to not have manufactured rants on this show because I think a lot of people who do sports radio, like the whole idea is, how do I come in today and turn on the mic and rant and be upset about something and be performative? And it's just not my bag. Like Thomas called in earlier this week and was like, what did you think of that costing the Yankees a no-hitter? And I'm like, I don't care. Like if I was a Yankees broadcaster, then maybe I'd care. But I'm not going to come in and be like, the league needs to hold that accountable. Where's the accountability? I don't care. But one thing that I will actually rant about and get frustrated about is when, especially in the NBA draft, Shams and Woj and Jake Fisher, who's at Yahoo, I don't know where y'all is, all of these guys get in a hog measuring contest about who can spoil picks faster. Hey, your league already lacks enough intrigue. Can you let the television product breathe? Stop spoiling picks. We're going to see it on television in just a minute. Stop being an a-hole and spoiling it for the people who are actually trying to watch it on television and enjoy on Thursday night. Well, then just don't go on your phone. but I want to go on my phone because I want to see reaction. I want to see what the football people are saying about the selections. I have no interest in insiders whose only job is to just spoil and put information out there 30 seconds before it's already going to be out there. That drives me nuts. Rick from Spencer says, Grant, the leak that the Packers are drafting a corner is pure subterfuge. I expect them to draft a trench player or an edge. I'd be happy with that. Look, I wouldn't be displeased if they drafted a corner. I don't really know, like, what do the Packers have to gain by saying, we like a corner? I mean, they're pick 23. Do you think there's a team at 25 who's like, shoot, we can't have the Packers taking Maxwell Harrison. We gotta trade up. You know what I mean? Like in the top 5, I think that takes place. I think that happens. At pick 23, I think everybody 20 and below is like, well, we'll see how the board falls, right? I think the bottom half of the round is much more reactive, not as proactive. So maybe it's subterfuge, or maybe it's Daniel Jeremiah and Todd McShay just saying, hey, this would make sense for the Packers. We'll see if it happens. Maybe it's less sourced and it's just more intuitive. But that's the name I've seen over the last 20 hours. We have a show to do tonight. It's a daily talk show, so we're going to talk about that tonight. Let's take a 3-minute break. When we come back, we're going to wrap up the hour, and I have some comments from prospects taking some shots at Green Bay, which I find very entertaining. I'm excited to talk about this as we wrap up hour number 1 next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
The Wisco Sports Show. Last couple minutes of hour number 1. We'll get an update from Zach at 5. Coody Stoots our contributing Texan. He covers the Texans for Houston football, but he's a huge draft guy. And, just sure as shoot, one of my favorite guests without fail to have on. And I think I first met Cody when I was filling in probably in like 2017 at the time, it would have been Dave and Scrady on WK2I. I was probably filling in with Hunter Baumgart, and the Packers were about to play the Texans, and we needed a Texans guest, and my buddy Hunter, who's now with the Packers flagship, was like, hey, this Coody Stoots guy, he's willing to come on. All right, shoot, let's do it. And any time I have an excuse to have him on, I just like having him on. So we're going to talk prospects. He has some Hairston takes, according to his Twitter earlier today. He was in my mentions when I tweeted about Maxwell Hairston. So we'll get to that in a little bit. Couple of prospects today. It kind of taking some shots at the city of Green Bay. First and foremost, Ashton Jeanty, the running back, who I guess the Bears are like all in on trying to trade up to get, and they're telling the world, which is a strategy. I'm not saying it's a good or a bad one, but it's a clear strategy, being loud and proud. Here's Ashton Jeanty talking about Green Bay, his reaction to the city of Green Bay.
Calm place, not much to do here. Nice big football stadium right by the suburbs. So,
my favorite part of that comment is that the stadium is right by the suburbs. Brother in Christ, suburbs would mean, well, a suburb is adjacent to a city. There ain't no city, man. Like, well, you just got to get outside of downtown Green Bay out to the suburbs.
Nice big football stadium right by the suburbs. So
no one wants to actually live in Green Bay. I like things a little bit slower out in Ashwaubenon or De Pere, but this comment right here.
Calm place, not much to do here.
Not much to do here. It is a little odd. Like, you guys are there to get drafted. What are you looking to do? Like, what are you in search of? And a lot of people on Twitter are like, Ashton Jeanty, he lived in Boise. Where does he get off? Sorry, folks in Green Bay, Boise rips. And like, Green Bay's not my favorite place in the world. Like, when players say there's not much to do there, I don't think they're not wrong. People get so defensive. You ever been to a fish fry? Yes. Everyone has had fried fish. I understand it's our thing. It's not just our thing, though. You ever had cheese curd? Yeah. And then I lay on my couch. I'm like, oh, why did I eat that? Yes, I have had frozen battered fried cheese, and I love cheese curds. Like, oh, you got to have the cheese curds. Okay, well, I don't know.
Not much to do here.
Correct. It's a little weird. It's a little cocky. Here's Cam Ward, who is assumedly going to go to number one of the Titans
Y'all
tonight.
see who we at, man. We in Green Bay. Ain't nothing to do here but get drafted. So we going to get drafted. Most of y'all know where we finna be at. Probably Nashville. Probably New York. So we going to see. But, man, if I had some advice for y'all, bring your jackets to Green Bay. It ain't to do here, and it's cold too. So I'm out.
Those are some cuss words that I bleeped out. I believe he says it's cold as S, and there ain't S to do here. I would draft the guy. Just on that 25-second clip. Wouldn't draft him. And it's not because he's taking shots at Green Bay. There is not S to do in Green Bay. Like, what a great showcase for the state of Wisconsin. I know everyone who's visiting is going to have a blast. We're not out in Green Bay, so I feel like I can let it rip a little bit. Imagine how much fun all these people would have if they went anywhere else in Wisconsin. Milwaukee, Madison, La Crosse, Eau Claire. Shoot, even Eau Claire. And I don't say even Eau Claire, but like Eau Claire too. Just more to do in all those places. It's just a very mature. I'm out on that. And it'd be one thing if his talent was just overwhelming, but it is not. So I don't know. I want my franchise quarterback to sound like he is in a military academy. And that's not to say that they can't have personality. I want yes, sir, no, sir. Very, Colin Cowherd said this. He's been saying this for years. I like my presidents to be presidential. I like my quarterbacks to be quarterbackial, which is a little corny, but it conveys the point. Like, I don't want them to be stand-up comedians. I don't want them to be S-talkers. I don't want them to be rappers. I want them to be quarterbacks. So out on Cam Ward. I feel for the Titans if that's their plan moving forward. But best of luck to all involved. But the guys aren't wrong. There is not a lot to do in Green Bay. Let's be honest. We'll get an update from Zach Heilbrunn. Back to your phone calls. Hour 2 next.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, we're just hours away from the start of the NFL draft in Green Bay. The gates open at noon for fans to roll into, where they can watch things in and around Lambeau Field. More than 250,000 people are expected to come through the city over the next 3 days. Tonight, they'll get to see the first round. Packers on pick number 23. Unclear where exactly they'll go with it. GM Brian Gutekunst joined the Rich Eisen show yesterday to discuss where he thinks they are as a team heading into the draft and into the 2025 season.
I think we're growing. We lost our last 3 games, right? I think that's a tough pill to swallow. I don't think we can get very far away from that and understand that we got a lot of work to do. But I do like our group. I think they're eager, and I think they're all kind of entering a phase where they're going to be playing their best football. So I think we're really excited about that.
Again, the draft gets going tonight with the first round. The second and third rounds are tomorrow, followed by the final 4 rounds on Saturday. Things start tonight at 7. Turning to Wisconsin, spring practice officially in the books. Team was on the field for the 15th and final practice this morning. Now the coaching staff's focus shifts to the transfer portal as they look to bolster their roster going forward.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
When a company only does business in Wisconsin, that's Wisconsin Strong. Rural Mutual provides all lines of insurance, including commercial, farm, home, and auto. And your premiums stay right here to keep Wisconsin strong. Local agents, local underwriters, local claims adjusters.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, Jon Horst is sticking around for the foreseeable future. The Bucs have reportedly given the GM a multi-year extension. The team he put together this year sits in an 0-2 hole in their first-round series against Indiana. They're going to look to get out of that tomorrow night in Game 3 back in Milwaukee. And the Brewers and Giants closing out their series this afternoon out west. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil, Print.
But the name that I keep hearing with Green Bay is a player I absolutely adore. Mad Max. Maxwell Hairston, cornerback, Kentucky, fastest man at the combine this year. 4.28. I think he's just as quick as he is fast. I've said it before. If you're talking about just pound for pound explosive athletes in this draft, I might put Hairston right behind Travis Hunter. Yeah. 6 interceptions, was it? 3 pick sixes, tied the school record. He's a dude, man. He can play man, he can play zone. Jair Alexander, that whole situation. I just like this pick.
Yeah, it's a good pick.
It's so unpredictable. I do think it's a good draft class. Certainly where we're picking, I think there's going to be a really good player that's going to help our football team. And we're really excited to add, not only a really good player, but a culture guy as well.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Just doing some last-minute cramming for the draft. I got my draft guide here from our lads, NFL.com. I really like it. The data and the reports from Chad Reuter and Lance Zierlein, very good. I like that they break it down into strengths and weaknesses. Give me the bullet points. And I understand some folks might say, well, come on, Grant. You've had weeks, you've had months to focus on the draft. Yeah, but also the Brewers are playing and there's other things going on. Plus, a wise man once told my very wise roommate in college, and I was at his bachelor party a couple weeks ago, and I brought this up and he remembered this. He would only study for exams the night before the test, and he would go cram for 6 hours. It was like a whole ordeal. It was like we'd send him off to war in our college house. He would get out of his recliner. He'd go, all right. And he'd take his backpack, and it's like he's being sent to the Pacific. It's like, well, you know what this is. And then he'd take the exam next day, and it would normally go fine because we're not studying to be doctors and lawyers here. But basically what he would always say, and I think it was a professor that told him this, if you wait until the last minute, it will only take a minute. So I'm trying to learn about these prospects fast and furious when we hear their names rumored. Today, the latest rumor is Maxwell Hairston, which is what we've been talking about for most of the show. I don't mind if the Packers go corner. I'll just give you my take really quickly before we get back to the phone calls. No problem if the Packers go corner. I think they have bigger needs at pass rush and at wide receiver, but they could also use a corner. The thing is, if you're going to draft a corner at 23, I don't want any of this big nickel, versatile. You have those guys. You have a whole secondary of those guys. What you need is a pure boundary guy. And if they believe Hairston can be that guy, great. Then I'm in. But if they draft Jade Baker with this idea, well, we'll make him a big nickel, which is everything that I read written about him at NFL.com and in the draft guide. It's like, well, I don't need that. You don't need that. And if you take that guy in the 6th round because you really like him, it's one thing. But to use your 23rd overall pick on a player that you don't really need at his position, and it's at a position that's not at the top of your list of needs, well, to me, that's not the best possible allocation of resources. It's an economy problem. It's an economics problem at that point, which I didn't go to school for economics, but my roommate did. And I don't know if I'd hire him to do anything based on his study habits, though. 608-321-1670. Back to the phone calls. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Southside Scott.
Hey, Southside Scott.
How are you?
I am well. Happy draft day.
Okay. Yes, happy draft day. You want to hear the reason I'm actually calling?
Yes.
Because I wanted to hear your show instead of the Brewers game.
Oh, yeah, because the only affiliate we're on, unless you catch the live stream, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, is our flagship, WOZN, because KTY and then WAYY and NAM, probably all of the Brewers running right now.
Yeah, no offense to the Brewers. They're winning 5-4. Great for the Brewers. So,
well, Vinny Capra is hitting right now, so that's mighty disrespectful to – Go ahead. What's your take? Hey, you're a Broncos guy. There's a lot of juice about the Broncos trying to jump up.
There is. So you know more information than I do, apparently, because I've been busy the last few days. So I haven't heard that. They want to jump up?
Yes, they're interested in Ashton Gianti or the player,
Really?
what's the name? Amarion Hampton, another running back. They want a running back. But I think Genti's going to be a little too high for them to get. But Hampton out of North Carolina, that could play.
I was thinking there was a running back out of Ohio State that they were interested in.
Travion Henderson. I've seen him going in the 1st round in a lot of mocks as well.
I think that's the name I'm thinking of. But I was calling in. If you can keep me on hold the whole time so I can hear your show, that'd be wonderful.
Is that why you called in?
I want to hear your show, not the Brewers at the moment, because it's draft day.
Well, I don't know. Taylor Rogers and Vinny Capra just had the showdown of the century. Vinny Capra, in a valiant effort, struck out looking. So I can put you on hold and enjoy the draft, please. And I can leave you right there. Not exactly the most pleasing game of baseball. Look, I said this a couple weeks ago, and I think this is going to be a drum that I beat throughout the season, just to give you a minute on the Brewers. There is no offense in baseball that shrinks the field like Pat Murphy's Brewers. And sometimes the small ball works. In fact, that's a reason that they got most of their runs today. Bunts, putting the ball in play, moving runners over, and that's a great pitch to have in your arsenal. Every once in a while, and I know this is a novel idea, you got to hit the ball out of the infield. Like, you have to hit a ball that clears the gravel part of the field. And for a team that, like, makes as good of contact as they make, like, not really today. Joey Ortiz just swinging and missing at Taylor Rogers. Not even the good one. I don't even know that either of them are that good. But Joey Ortiz, whose only positive characteristic as an offensive player is that he doesn't strike out, struck out. Vinny Capra, who doesn't really have any positive characteristics, striking out. Sal Frelick, watching one right down the pipe, striking out. And when the ball is put into play, it's grounders. Like, it's infield practice for the Giants today. So there is continuing. There is no offense in baseball that makes a baseball field feel smaller than the Pat Murphy Brewers. And look, if they can hold on to this win, so it's 5-4 because Abner Uribe came in, walked a guy, gave up a bomb naturally. So it's 5-4. If they can hold on to win this game and they split this series in San Francisco, I have no complaints. Like, I have absolutely no complaints. I don't even know what I would complain about other than this team drives me nuts to occasionally watch. Tyler Alexander is pitching with a 1-run lead against a good ball club. This is some kind of experience, the 2024-2025 Brewers. That's your Brewers Minute. Hope you enjoyed it. 608-321-1670. Seeing the phone is not ringing off the hook regarding the draft, I can also give you the Bucks news of the day, which is Jon Horst being given an extension. And this was first reported by Shams Charania. I can read you the tweet here if you just give me a moment to pull it up. I knew I wanted to bring this up at some point. The Milwaukee Bucks and general manager Jon Horst have agreed to a multi-year contract extension. Sources tell ESPN. The Bucks and Horst's agent, Brian Elfuss, it's a hell of a name, reached a new deal this week for the NBA. You're just looking to get the agent's name in there. And there might be anything. I'm perusing his story right now. Just the news I've been waiting for, says Coach Doc Rivers after Thursday's practice. I'm just very happy for him. He's done an amazing job. We have an amazing relationship. It creates stability. I'm just a big believer in stability in organizations. That's how you build teams. Those are words saying, stability, please don't fire me. Horst, the architect of the Bucks 2021 championship, their first in 50 years, has made several signature transactions as the leader of the franchise's basketball operations. He led the hiring of Budenholzer, signed Lopez and Portis. He traded for Drew Holiday and PJ Tucker and landed Damian Lillard in a blockbuster deal right before the 2023 season. The Bucks finished blah, blah, blah last year before losing the Pacers. Horst's sometimes bold acquisitions have led Antetokounmpo to sign 2 extensions with the Bucks, a 5-year supermax and then a 3-year supermax in 2023. The pairing of Antetokounmpo and Lillard, however, has yet to lead the kind of results that Milwaukee envisioned when they made the trade. The Bucks are still searching for their first playoff series win since the first round of the 2022 playoffs. Rivers, who was hired in January 24, said the connection between the front office and coaching staff is key to winning franchises. And he lauded his connection with Horst since arriving in Milwaukee. It's the best connected I've ever been since Boston. It matters so much for coaches. The team starts upstairs in the front office, then coaches, then everybody sees it's a team. We have that. I really hope they send Doc Rivers packing this offseason. And it's not like Doc Rivers has been the biggest issue with this club, but they really now can improve on the margins, and that's about it. How can you get better role players? How can you get better strategy? How can you get better at the little things? And Doc Rivers is not going to help you with that. And I understand that they were in a pinch. They needed a coach last year because Griffin was such a terrible hire. A lot of people rag Jon Horst. I think the biggest complaints or the biggest misses of Jon Horst's general manager tenure in Milwaukee was the hiring of Adrian Griffin. And that was widely reported to be a hire that was kind of driven by Giannis. There were also some murmurs and some reports, although I haven't really been able to confirm any of this strongly, that the agents had their hand in the mix. Like that pool of coaches was kind of put together by the owners. And then the selection was made basically between Nick Nurse and Adrian Griffin. And Giannis didn't want Nick Nurse, so Adrian Griffin it was. That's kind of the rub. I didn't really want Nick Nurse either. Adrian Griffin was an unknown, so I didn't really have a strong opinion of it at the time, but that turned out to be a horrible hire, and it was made worse by the fact that ownership and basketball ops in Milwaukee tried to saddle him with Terry Stotts. It's like, well, you can get the job, but you need to take Terry Stotts as your lead assistant. And Terry Stotts was like, I'm way better than this guy. I've coached it. Why am I? So it was an arranged marriage from the jump. No one was happy about it. Stotts leaves, and it was just a big pig pile. It was a mess, right? But I don't know that you can hang that on Horst. Because I don't think if Jon Horst was given full autonomy to hire a coach, I don't think he would have hired Adrian Griffin. And then because they had to fire Adrian Griffin midseason, they're selecting coaches from a small pool, so they end up hiring Doc Rivers because who else are you going to hire in the middle of the year? You got to pull someone out of the TV booth. So the two biggest gaffes, it was really one gaffe. The hiring of Griffin, I can't really hang that fully around the neck of Jon Horst. And then the hiring of Doc Rivers was only in reaction to the misfire of Adrian Griffin. So again, not really on Jon Horst. My hope is that they blow out Doc Rivers and they let Jon Horst kind of continue building this team along the path that was started back at the trade deadline when they shipped off Middleton to make the money work. Like, let him continue to follow through with this. Now, I wasn't super psyched to learn this news because currently with the Bucks, it's not going great. But then I sat back and I started to think about this a little bit. So think about it this way, Bucks fans. The way I see it, at least, you have two choices. You can A, let Jon Horst continue to do his thing and build the team the way that he wants, or B, blow out Jon Horst and entrust Jimmy Haslam and his group of governors, because we can't say owners in 25, his group of governors, and they can select the next guy. Neither one sounds awesome, but don't you think Jon Horst is a lot better at his job than the Bucks owners are at theirs? Yeah, I think so. So I'll stick with the devil that I know. And I don't even know that he's a devil. Like, I think Jon Horst, with the resources that he's had, has done a pretty good job. Now he hasn't drafted worth a snot, but they also haven't had a ton of picks. And the NBA draft is such a crapshoot. Like, okay, so if Jon Horst gets one first-round pick every 4 years, like, it's a little unfair to, like, hang his entire tenure on those picks. The Beauchamp pick sucked. The A.J. Johnson pick, who knows, because they had to ship him out to get rid of Chris Middleton. So I don't know. the biggest qualm with Jon Horst is the drafting, but guess what? They don't exactly own a lot of picks moving forward, so maybe that will continue to not really be an issue. I don't know. Or be an issue limited or relegated every couple of years, So the way that I spin this Jon Horst extension is, well, I would rather Jon Horst try to figure it out than start from scratch and then put it in the hands of a group of Bucks governors who are going to squabble amongst themselves and want different things. And one of them is Jimmy Haslam. Hell no. I don't want him anywhere near any of this. So I guess I'll stick with Jon Horst, and it's fine. A couple of texts here. We'll get back into the draft after this next break. And then Coody Stoots going to join us at 5:30. Let's see. Cone Roller says, Green Bay is just outside the Big Apple ton. Could be considered a suburb. That's outstanding. Jay Krebs says, what the F do they need to do? You're there to play football. That's why these morons get in trouble. Yeah, speaking about some of these players talking about, well, there's not much to do in Green Bay.
Calm place, not much to do here. Nice big football stadium right by the suburbs, so.
I mean, he's not wrong. There's basically nothing to do in Green Bay. Rick from Spencer says, my buddy just called me from the draft. He's drinking with a contingent of Packers fans from Ireland. Bloody Marys and Spotted Cow are a huge hit with them. People do love Spotted Cow when they travel to Wisconsin. And I love Spotted Cow. It's great. I think people get so bent out of shape. It's like, Spotted Cow's not even the best New Glarus beer. Okay, calm down, Mr. Home Brewer. It's a good beer. All beer is good. Craft brewery culture has tanked what it means to be a beer drinker in this country. That's a whole nother rant for a different time. 3 minutes, we're going to come back. I'll take any more calls if you have them. And then Coody Stoots, Houston football, going to join us to go over some prospects at 5:35.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
All right, I know that the NFL draft is tonight, and we were just talking a little Bucks news. And I know we talked a bunch of Bucks basketball yesterday, and I know Vagabond John was up my butt the other day for talking Brewers baseball, Bucks week. I need someone to explain to me what Pat Murphy is thinking with this bullpen. Okay, I guess I just need help me understand what's going on here. Okay, so the Brewers had a lead of 5-2, I believe, and I just want to make sure I have it right. Yes, they were up 5-2 through 5. Okay, so that's fine. The Brewers then get into trouble in the 5th with Tobias Myers, so he goes to the pen. Fine. The Giants get 2 runs off of McGill, who gives up a bomber. Not McGill, but Uribe. I mean, they might as well be the same guy. They just come in and throw hard as hell and yell a lot. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just it's easily confusable. The 6th inning, they go to who did he pitch now? Let me see here. I just want to make sure I have this damn thing right. Okay. So Uribe pitches the 5th, gives up 2 runs. Koenig pitches the 6th, doesn't give up anything. All right, that makes sense. Nick Mears pitches the 7th, makes sense. Then in the 8th, we get Tyler Alexander. Now, typically when you bring in relievers, you go from lesser to greater. You typically don't pitch your lesser pitchers later in the game. Maybe there's some metrics with Tyler Alexander I'm missing. I don't know. I haven't looked at his Savant page in a while. I don't believe Tyler Alexander to be better than Nick Mears or Jared Koenig or Abner Uribe. I get Uribe in the 5th because he came in. Well, no, actually, I guess I don't get it that much in the 5th because I thought he came in with runners on, but he didn't. So I guess I don't really get Uribe in the 5th. I don't get any of this. And now, to make matters worse, Tyler Alexander comes in, gives up the lead. It's 5-5, 1 out, runners on the corners, and he goes to McGill. So closers should be counted on to get more than 3 outs every once in a blue moon. I'm not treating McGill with kid gloves. I just don't understand. I understand the thought process of going from Uribe to Koenig to Mears, finishing with McGill. I don't know how Tyler Alexander ended up in the middle of that. I guess that's my question. I guess I don't really understand that. Whatever. He'll probably talk about it after the game. Not that we can count on our mighty FanDuel channel to post the interview clips on social media because Lord knows fans wouldn't have any interest in that. Let's take a call. And then before too long, we're going to get to a break because our good friend Coody Stoots from Houston Football is going to join us to talk draft. But a call first, 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Eric on 990.
Good evening, Eric.
Good evening, Grant. You started out with before too long, and thank God my calls don't take too long.
Well, luckily you're the only caller on hold. We've had a quiet night, and I think it's because some of our affiliates, probably including WKTY, are running the Brewers, right?
Yes, they are running the Brewers. So, yeah, quiet night for you.
A little bit.
Remember that. Yeah. Well, thank God for the Shakur Sanders, right?
Shakur, Tupac Shakur Sanders, yes.
Yeah, because we really wouldn't have anybody to, like, exciting, right? I mean, he's exciting.
Correct.
So, and there's always somebody, right? So it might as well be him this year. We'll see where he goes.
He's a little bit of a lightning rod. He'll be fun. Like, if he makes it into the 20s, because typically once you get into the 20s, you can kind of start to snooze a little bit. It's fun that one of the bigger lightning rods or the bigger stories of the draft is going to make it that far.
Yeah, that would be fun. I think the Packers should pick him up.
Shadur Sanders. So Cone Roller called in earlier and said, Grant, would you trade Jordan Love to the Steelers for Jordan Love to the Steelers for Shadur Sanders and TJ Watt? And I thought that was interesting.
Well, they'd never do that. Why would they want a mediocre quarterback for 2-star players?
You think Shadur's going to be a star?
Well, I don't know, but you still got TJ Watt. I mean, that's a pretty valuable player.
Yeah. I mean, he's 30. He's going to need a new contract. I don't know how general managers weight that stuff. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is they get to Green Bay, and they come on, they announce it, and they say, offensive guard out of, right?
Yeah.
That's the worst possible news, offensive guard. So I hope that doesn't happen to you, Grant.
Look, I
But
think I would be a little bit annoyed with a guard, unless one of the elite tackles falls, but I don't even know that there are elite tackles in this draft. Now getting even borderline elite guy near the bottom of the first round, that could be something, but I think the Packers' biggest needs are wide receiver and defensive line, and then probably corner. And I've seen a lot of buzz. I know, Eric, you're not listening to the show. You've just called in because WK2I is running the Brewers. But I've seen a lot of buzz about corner, specifically Maxwell Hairston. So maybe I'm preparing myself for that.
today. That name popped up just recently.
Yeah, like this morning, basically.
Right. So you weren't dispatched with the rest of the zone crew up to Green Bay. You got to stay home.
I was not dispatched. I probably maybe could have wiggled my way or weaseled my way up there. I like being in the studio. This is where you're supposed to do a radio show. You know what I mean? Right. It would be fun if I was going up there and I didn't have to work. I would do that.
Right.
But it turns out to just be more work to go up there and do it. And then I probably wouldn't be able to go out and have fun and bum around because I'd be on the air right now. You know what I mean?
Right. So, yeah, well, good luck in the draft, Grant. You have a great weekend.
You as well, Eric. I appreciate it. Good luck to your Vikings. I think my nightmare is that some great wide receiver who we're all interested in falls to the Packers and then they pass on him. Like, let's just say Emeka Egbuka, right? Like, let's say Emeka Egbuka falls to the Packers and then they don't take him and then he immediately goes to the Vikings. Like, that's our nightmare, right? Like, that's kind of what happened with Cooper DeJean to a lesser degree, but it happened definitely with Jackson Smith and Jigba a couple of years ago, right? Now, he fell a good ways, and I'm not going to totally blame the Packers for passing on Jackson Smith and Jigba because a lot of teams did. I'll blame them a little bit for drafting Lucas Van Ness if he never turns in anything more than what we're seeing right now. But I think my nightmare is not just that the Packers pass on a wide receiver, it's that then that player immediately goes to the Vikings or to a rival and makes them better right away, because that seemingly has happened a couple times now. I would like to avoid that. I'm not going to lie. I'm just tilted by the Brewers right now. I don't know what Pat Murphy is doing. He uses Tyler Alexander as a leverage pitcher in the eighth, only to bring in McGill with only one out, and then Christian Yelich drops a gimme fly ball. I know that's not Murphy's fault. He's not asleep at the wheel with the bullpen. He's drunk at the wheel. Like, why is if you're going to pitch Tyler Alexander, pitch him in the fifth, pitch him in the sixth, because you have Uribe, Koenig, Mears, McGill all ready to go. But you pitch Alexander at the beginning of that sequence, you knob, not in the middle. God, they can't afford to give these games away when they have a multi-run lead. This also feels like kind of the Brewers' destiny in 2025. Like, one night they'll look good and they'll win, and then the next night they'll look absolutely uncompetitive. And I guess that's what they deserve for starting Vinny Capra and Joey Ortiz, and also Garrett Mitchell, and also not really like having elite starting pitching, just having fine starting pitching. Like, I guess that's the team that they built, and they are getting the results that they paid for, or that they built for, I guess. Yeah, Bobby Nominee Texans says, you just biffed it. Yeah, he biffed it. He biffed it pretty good. Hit right out of his glove. Not that he was going to make that throw home anyways. He was probably hyping himself up to try to gun a runner at home like Terang did, right? Gave away an out there earlier in the inning as well. Just can be a really unlikable team to watch. Just can be a really infuriating, unlikable team to watch. Let's take a couple-minute break here. We'll come back. Coody Stoots, Houston football, going to join us next on the other side. And we're going to talk about prospects. And he's got Maxwell Hairston takes, so maybe he can help us better understand why the Packers are interested and whether or not they should be interested. We'll get into that next. Coody Stoots, Houston football on the other side.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes.
Dun, dun, dun.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. I normally like when there's baseball on, but I'd rather it not be the Brewers. This team, we'll get to them tomorrow. I don't know what Murphy's doing with the bullpen. Yelich is dropping fly balls. They're ground ball merchants, whatever. We can talk more about that tomorrow. The NFL draft is tonight, and that gives us a great excuse to have a guest who, like, I don't normally have great excuses to have this guest on. Every couple of blue moons when the Packers play the Texans, like, I have an excuse to bring Coody Stoots on, which I think is how we met first years ago. Cody, welcome back. Can you hear me and see me?
I can. We're ready to rock, and we're ready to talk about the draft. It's quite literally one of my favorite events. I think in another life, I was some old curmudgeon scout that went around and watched terrible, terrible college and high school football and just wrote about those prospects. So I love the draft. I start covering it basically the moment the Texans are done with their season. And it's so much fun. And I got a hunch the Packers will give you plenty to talk about tomorrow too. You may get to the Brewers next week.
Interesting. Okay. So, well, the reason why I DM'd you today, and it's so last minute, is because I tweeted earlier today, I'm hearing Maxwell Hairston everywhere. Everywhere is relative, like in a couple different places. Daniel Jeremiah's mocked to the Packers. Todd McShay's like, I keep hearing it. So that was kind of the talking point on our midday show today. And I've been talking about him as a prospect. And you tweeted at me, you said, don't do that to yourselves. Is that because you don't like Maxwell Hairston, or you just think that's bad radio? Like, let's start there.
That just couldn't that can't be the selection for the Green Bay Packers at the pick that they're at. That's not good value. There should be better players than him available on defense. If you want to go defense, there should be better offensive players available. If you want to go offense, you just can't do that to yourself if you're the Packers. I get it. I understand that he was really fast, and I get the Kentucky's put some defenders on NFL defenses here in the past couple of seasons, but that's not the move. Go get something more reliable, more sturdy. And I know there's defensive back concerns with this Packers team. I understand that. You could address that later, or you might get really damn lucky because of all the chaos that seems going to happen. You might get really lucky and get a much better player than Maxwell Hairston.
Well, I was going to say, I don't think their biggest need is corner. I think they need wide receiver help more. I think they need defensive line or edge rusher help more. They could use a corner, but corner was far from their biggest issue last year. They signed Nate Hobbs, which is a nice player, not a superstar, but a nice player. They have great safeties. Like, I think they're okay. They don't have a massive pressing need at corner, although I want them to add. So Maxwell Hairston, I was looking at the consensus big board, is like 45, whereas players like Will Johnson or Jade Baker in the top 20. You probably would have thought that Jordan Morgan last year was a reach for the Packers too. Like, fine player who checks a lot of their boxes, but maybe you could have got someone who was more coveted at that spot. Is there some similarity there? I'm trying to think back to last year.
I would think so. Yeah. Like, you could have done a different thing than go with him, though. Offensive linemen are strange. Certainly versatile offensive linemen. I just feel like there's going to be an edge rusher there. There's going to be a defensive tackle there. There's going to be a different cornerback there that is more worthwhile for the pick than Maxwell Hairston. And look, you're successful in the SEC. I get it. You run fast. I understand that's important, but Jahdae Barron is a better player from Texas. Will Johnson's a better player from Michigan. If Shamar Stewart is there from Texas A&M, draft him. He's a freak. Okay. If Donovan Ezeraku is there from Boston College, he led the nation in sacks and tackles for a loss last year. Draft him. Like, don't draft a cornerback who shouldn't be a first-round pick because you feel like you need a cornerback. That's a recipe to lose out on good value. Now, you want to move back because it feels like, 2-3 teams there at the top of the second round want to trade up. Be my guest. Move back and draft Maxwell Hairston. But drafting him in the first round, that'd be a little rich for me.
Well, let's talk big picture about this draft. A part of the reason why I'm very excited about this draft, or more excited than normal, because the draft is not my number one thing. Because I'll just talk about baseball. Like, I'll get into other things, and we'll do a little bit of the draft, but it's not the main thing. Part of the reason this draft intrigues me is I feel like the Packers at 23 have as good of a chance to get an elite player as they would at 13, at 8. I just feel like once you get past Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, maybe Genty and Tyler Warren, with all these edge rushers and all these D linemen and all these O linemen and corners too, I just feel like you could get a great player anywhere in the remainder of the first round, and that's exciting for the Packers. So let's talk about how you view this draft big picture, and then we can zoom back in.
You're right about that. Once you get outside those first 10 or so guys, it really does turn into guy 13 and 14 is roughly the same as guy 40 and 41. And you typically don't see that, I would say, in drafts. You typically have a couple of guys maybe with a question here or there, but that check into the teens or the early 20s. But to have basically guys in the early teens be basically the same as the guys in the 40s, you could get some really weird draft picks. You could get some really weird selections. Like, I'm sure people probably haven't seen the name Derek Harmon a ton in the first round, the defensive tackle from Oregon. He's probably a first rounder in this year's draft. And if he doesn't, then somebody's going to think they got a steal. But he's basically the same guy as somebody that's going to go 14 or 15. He's not going to be that much better if you think he's a steal. So go ahead and draft him. And I guess that kind of is where Maxwell Harrison falls into the conversation. But I would identify harder to find positions, and I would grab those guys. I think there's going to be some edge rushers that fall, which will be intriguing. I think there's going to be some offensive linemen that fall. But yeah, basically guy 14 is close to guy 34, and there's not a huge difference between those two.
Let me throw you like kind of fantasy style show here. I'll throw you a grouping of players and you tell me like, who should I be hoping falls in this group, right? So let's just do some edge rushers because there's a bunch of them. There's a group of them. Mikhail Williams, Mike Green, Shamar Stewart, James Pierce Jr., and Ezraku, who Jeff Hafley would know from his time at Boston College. Like of that group, who should we be praying falls? Like who would you be jacked to get in the early 20s?
So Shamar Stewart has you'd like Shamar Stewart. He's very he's kind of understated in the way that he talks about things, but he has a perfect athletic score coming out of the combine.
That's what the Packers love. That was Van Ness. That was Rashawn Gary. That's their thing.
Yeah. The problem is he had 2 sacks at Texas A&M last year. And,
that's also the thing.
and I would tell you that a lot of that is I'm blaming Mike Elko, the head coach at Texas A&M, and the defense they run, because Nick Scorton, his teammate, also had a handful of sacks, and their teammate Shamar Turner only had a handful of sacks. So Shamar Stewart's the guy you want to fall to you because they just don't make very many human beings like him. Mike Green's a really impressive guy. Mike Green's got a very serious off-the-field allegation that led to him playing at Marshall. So if you're comfortable with that off the field, and that's, that gets a clean, thumbs up from the investigation staff of a team, then he's a nice player. I mean, it seems that the Falcons really like him at 15. So if he snuck past them, that's a good player. And I like Ezraku. I mean, he's a lunch pail guy. He's maybe a little bit smaller than some of these other guys. But as far as guys that fall to you, Shamar Stewart, because there's some clay to be molded into, a top 10 pass rusher if it works out.
So they have Rashawn Gary at one defensive end. They have Lucas Van Ness at the other. Enigbari, who's a nice rotational piece, but Van Ness is this freak from Iowa, not that dissimilar from Shamar Stewart. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but just like a human being that is not very common. Like there's not a lot of people like that. He just hasn't done much. Gutekunst, the Packers GM, keeps saying like, we expect big things. We expect big things. So I don't know how excited he is to draft another guy at that exact spot to replace him or to compete with him. I'm interested to see if they have an appetite for someone on the interior, because who knows how Kenny Clark is going to go. So I'm looking at the consensus big board right in the Packers neighborhood. Walter Nolan, 23. The Packers took a visit with him, and Derek Harmon, 24. Let's talk about those two guys.
Run the card in for Walter Nolan. Here's the tough part about Walter Nolan. Some of the rumors about him being a bag chaser, leaving Texas A&M, going to Ole Miss. Okay, well, his coach and his position coach and his head coach left. I think it's okay to transfer. That's what we've been fighting for all these years for these kids. Yeah. Okay, so I don't buy that. There's some rumors that he would just get angry at himself and tap out of a practice because he messed up. Okay, that's kind of hard to understand. You kind of want guys to practice. But the best version of Walter Nolan is one of the 5 best players in this draft.
Really? Okay.
They don't make defensive tackles with his conglomeration of skills very often. And if you've ever heard a defensive line coach say the quickest path to the quarterback is straight ahead, Walter Nolan personifies that. Now, do you have to fine-tune some things? Yeah, you do. Probably a good locker room to be in from a defensive line, from a pass rush perspective, but you got a bunch of veterans out there. So for Green Bay, I go Walter Nolan. If he's not there, because he could go, gosh, if the Panthers took him at 8, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, he's really good. If he's not there, Derek Harmon is perfectly okay. Derek Harmon is perfectly okay. He's a fast riser. He's a guy that gives you a little bit more combo than Nolan. Nolan gives you a little bit more pass rush. Harmon gives you a little bit more run stop and pass rush to him. But I'd also say this is a really deep defensive tackle draft, so don't feel like you have to grab one of those guys right there, because Darius Alexander in the second round, TJ Sanders from South Carolina in the second round, Shamar Turner from Texas A&M, we talked about him a moment ago, Omar Norman. There's a lot of guys. I like a lot of these defensive tackles, so don't be beholden like, oh, our edges aren't there, let's just get a tackle. you could
Sure.
wait on that. Try something else.
So wide receiver, I'll ask you one more kind of Packers-centric question. I think McMillan's going to be off the board early. I don't know when early. I think the only way that the Packers would even have a chance is if he makes it to like 12, 13, 14, 15. I think the Packers, their general managers traded up for guys in the past. I don't think that's realistic. Do you think, let me ask you differently. Once McMillan's off the board, what receiver or receivers would be worthy of a selection at 23, in your opinion?
For the Packers specifically, I don't know that Emeka Egbuka fits because Emeka Egbuka is kind of take all the best stuff of the Packers wide receivers, like take what they do well and kind of put it into one package. And it's like he replicates a lot of what they do. Like there's nothing amazing about Emeka Egbuka. He's really reliable. He's good enough at beating guys. He's good enough against man coverage. He's good enough. He's speedy enough. He blocks well. Like that's fine. If you're the Packers, you're drafting a wide receiver, you got to go top end. You got to have potential. I don't particularly love Matthew Golden, but Matthew Golden, his top end potential is higher than a lot of people in this draft. So Matthew Golden would be a guy if he slipped down there to the Packers. And then it would surprise a lot of people, but again, you're looking for top end. You're looking for maybe stuff you don't currently have on the roster. Jaden Higgins from Iowa State, 23 would be really early for him. He's probably a mid-second round guy. But if you want something unique that some of the other guys don't have, he's Nico Collins-esque. He's got basically all the same measurables as the Texans wide receiver Nico Collins from a height, weight, speed, arm length, hand size, everything. Okay. They're very similar. And if you wanted to get someone who has top end ability, I would not go with Egbuka. I'd go with Golden, a little bit riskier to me. And then I'd go with Higgins and just kind of hope for the best. And that'd be where I'd go for wide receiver. I don't think you're getting a top end talent, a guy that has top end talent enough to crack the rotation consistently if you don't go with one of those two guys.
Sure. Okay. And that's what we're looking for at 23. The Packers have not been afraid, as we talked about, like with the Maxwell Hairston potential or with Jordan Morgan last year. Like they haven't been afraid in the past to overdraft someone in the early first round just to make sure that they get them. So I'll leave the door open for someone like Jaden Higgins. Coody Stoots here, Houston Football. A lot of buzz about the Bears. They want to get up and get Genty. I love NFL people because we all agree it's like, man, value with a running back is really tough. But then you get these running backs who are like, but this guy's freaking sweet. And like, you know, like we still have a love of the game when we cover the NFL that maybe doesn't exist in some other sports. Do you think it's worth it for the Bears to jump up and get a player like that?
I do, because I don't know that it's going to cost them. Like it's not going to just gut their draft to do it. They're already at 10, you know, so go into 5 and they've got a pick at 39 and a pick at 41. So it costs you one of those picks. So you go get Genty. And it's worth noting Ben Johnson had DeAndre Swift in Detroit and like refused to play him. So can't imagine he feels like they've got any running backs right now. So if you give Ben Johnson Genty, and people think Genty's a one-trick pony. 2 years ago, Boise State, he had like 500 yards receiving. Like, so he's do it all back. You give that guy to Ben Johnson, that's big time for the Bears. What gets really weird is like, it's easy to understand why the Jags would do it, because then they go get a wide receiver. They go get Tetairoa McMillan. If the Jags somehow move to 2, which has been rumored here in the past few hours, if the Jags move to 2, I don't know that Cleveland's coming from 5 to 10.
Yeah.
So then Genty's there at 6. It's the Raiders. Genty goes there, and the Bears are, you know, they're out of luck, and then they're taking probably an offensive lineman and trying to get one of those running backs in the second round. But I'd do it if I was the Bears. Make up for it. If it doesn't work, make up for it with money while Caleb Williams is a rookie.
Yeah, sure. Do you think Tyler Warren is being under-discussed as a potential like franchise tight end for a team that gets him?
I'd pick him at 4 if I was the Patriots.
Really? I like that. It's that inspires a little bit more than Will Hernandez. What's his name? Will Campbell.
Will Campbell,
a little bit more than what Will Campbell gives you, in my opinion.
I'd pick Tyler Ward at 4 if I was the Patriots. I'm Mike Vrabel. I'm familiar with how New England runs. Patriots fans know what a good tight end looks like. That guy would just fit perfectly with what they've got going on up there, which is Vrabel's going to try to turn him into a tough, mean team. He can give you enough from a blocking standpoint. Tight end like him, be Drake May's best friend. I'd draft him at 4. If I was Jacksonville, I'd draft him at 5. obviously Vegas, they got Brock Bowers, so they
They're
won't
set.
do that.
They're set.
But then if I was the Jets, I'd draft him at 7. If I was Carolina, I'd draft him at 8. Like I love Tyler Warren. I wish the Texans could get Tyler Warren. They can't. Too good at football in 2024 to get Tyler Warren in 2025. But I drafted him at 4 if I was the Patriots, and I would just try to figure out my offensive line situation in the second and beyond. Because the Patriots had probably one of the worst offensive lines in football last year. So I try to figure that out later. Tyler Warren, he's a dude. He's awesome. And I would try to get him with all my heart if I was one of these football teams.
Well, I asked the right guy. And maybe we just have fatigue. Like we were told that Kyle Pitts is going to be that. And like Noah Fant, like, man, but I don't know. We were all hyped about Brock Bowers last year. So like we've seen young tight ends pan out. I don't know what it is.
You got to be an athlete. Warren's an athlete. And you got to be able to do it all. And he could do it all. Like Pitts couldn't block.
Yeah.
Laporta.
I saw a picture of Kyle Pitts standing next to Jordan Love on a golf course. It's like, why is Kyle Pitts not dwarfing Jordan Love? He looks small. It was weird.
Yeah. So I think Laporta's success allowed a guy like Bowers to go as high as he did. Plus the intrigue that the league had around Bowers, because if you believe the rumors, the Colts tried to trade up to get him and the Rams tried to trade up to get him. And ultimately the Raiders ended up with him. And Warren, he's done. Colston Loveland's awesome too.
Yeah.
Colston Loveland's probably a better receiver than Tyler Warren. I like Colston Loveland a lot. So
15th on the consensus big board. And for a draft that seems to lack so much pop once you get out of the top 5, no one's really talking about these awesome tight ends.
If you told me that 2 of the 5 best pass catchers in this draft in a few years are tight ends, I'd believe you.
Yeah. All right.
I'd believe you. Well, the Packers wouldn't take a tight end, would they?
I mean, maybe
Probably
Loveland at 23. It would be a luxury. I think they need to build depth, which they can do in later rounds. They like Kraft a lot, and they should. I think he's one of their better players.
He's solid enough that you don't want to sort of ruin what you got with him. And you don't want to take, you got the wide receiver numbers. Maybe you don't want to take one of those guys off the field. So Loveland probably doesn't fit them. If you want to add a body later, it's a deep tight end draft. I like these guys. So
I like that. You got a live show tonight for Houston football. You throwing something on the grill?
Man, I'm not. I did not have everything. Just the draft season got busy, and I'm sure if the Texans had made some weird pre-draft trade about an hour and a half ago, where they got rid of their 5th round pick but added 3 late round picks, I'd have had time to fire something up. But I got some garlic Parmesan chicken that I cooked the other night in the air fryer. So that'll have to carry me over,
Well, I'm definitely going to tune in. I got to run our draft show tonight, so I'll be looking around and getting your reaction. By the way, that trade is from a content creator perspective, it sucks because you have to figure it out. You have to learn what happened and intimately know, but it's not that interesting. So you're studying up on this trade. It's okay.
Well,
so
and one of my favorite players in this draft is supposed to be a 5th rounder. Isaac Tesla from Arkansas, wide receiver. He's a physical freak. He's not been good at wide receiver, but you could teach him. And he's supposed to be a 5th rounder. Now they don't have a 5th rounder. So now I don't get Tesla.
This is how you know you're a draft guy, is you can have a take about a trade that involved a 5th round pick. Well, enjoy. I get a little FOMO that I'm not up in Green Bay. Maybe you feel the same way, but very excited to watch it tonight. It should be pretty cool. So thank you for the time, Cody.
You step outside, you might be able to hear them.
I know. I'm not too far away, so I'm getting pictures and it looks cool. Next time they host a draft, maybe I'll try to get up there.
Yeah, enjoy and maybe we'll visit in February next year in San Francisco. How's that sound?
Let's do it. I like that idea a lot. Thank you, Cody. We'll find a reason to talk. We always do.
Sounds good, man.
Coody Stoots, Houston football, support his work, his YouTube, his not Facebook page. God, I'm a boomer. But follow him on Twitter at Coody Stoots. I love that. That was great. That's exactly what I needed. All right, we'll wrap up the Wisco Sports Show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. Gotta hurry. We only got about 2 minutes left. There's a caller on hold. I want to make sure I can get him in here. All right. Got to be quick. Got about a minute. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, Coyote Mike.
Hey,
Happy
Coyote Mike.
birthday. Hey, I just tuned in. Sorry, I was listening to that ridiculously bummer Brewer game.
Yeah, don't even start
Yeah,
with me.
they just can't seem to get it together one for a few games in a row, you know.
Correct.
But anyway, I wanted to call and say I haven't really followed much on the draft, but here's my wild pick, and probably somebody's already mentioned it. Packers are going to trade up, draft McMillan.
You think so?
I sent that in to Evo this morning, and Rob Reichel came on like 10 minutes later and said the same thing. So he's had a good run, I think, of predicting some of the picks recently. So
I bet they would. I bet they would like to. And Coyote Mike, we'll talk more tomorrow. I promise. You never miss a Friday show. I just got to run. It is not lost on me that two of our smarter football guests who've talked draft with us over the last 2 weeks have said, yeah, other than McMillan, maybe, like, I don't know if receiver is the move at 23. Now, trading up for McMillan might be a little different. I don't know how much it would cost. I think a lot of teams want to move down, so I don't know what the price would be. But if they can't get McMillan, I might be okay with them going not wide receiver at 23. So we'll see. Just a couple hours away. In 1 hour, we'll get the Bill Michaels draft show underway. I will be on at 7 to 11. So wherever you get his show normally. Otherwise, the rest of you, I'll talk to you tomorrow at 4. Never miss a Friday.